Okay, this is a piece. I'll just do a quick talk about how to do that demo right. So this is really, I guess, come from 35 years of working in recorder studios and making all sorts of recordings for all sorts of artists, including lots of demos. So it seemed to me that there was almost a bit of a formula for doing that and being successful at making demos. And it just occurred to me that some of you, I used to hope that I'll do this sort of talky thing, and then if just one person who listens to this thinks, oh, and that it resonates with them in some way and just helps them perhaps approach something even just slightly differently than they might have done had they not heard this, and they end up with a better result for their whatever it is they're doing, then it's up to me, that's a result, and I'll be very happy with this. So thank you for watching, and do your best stuff at all times, anyone watching this. So there's really, when it comes to making a demo, about most things really, probably, but I can only really talk about making demos with regards to like music, song demos, that kind of thing. So I'm going to sort of be focused on that, but I guess it would apply to anyone making any kind of demo or showcase of what they do. The first thing to remember with it, I think, when it comes to when you do a demo, there is a really big rule that you must follow at all times, which is this: there are no rules. Okay, so there's no like handbook. Oh, this is how you're supposed to go around and make a decent demo. Don't take any notes of anyone. Attention to anyone. Do it the way that you think is the best way to go about doing it. If you have a technical or if there's something technical just about the process, perhaps maybe of just, well, what's the best way to do that in a recording studio, because you're not familiar with it or for any reason, it doesn't matter why, then seek some advice, of course. But only that, just seek some other input from other people, but decide yourself what is the best way as far as you're concerned. Because if you're successful with what you do, then you can genuinely turn around and say, yeah, but I did it my way, that's why I'm successful. If I'd have done it the way they wanted me, I wouldn't have got where I am. Of course, you have the other option where you do things the way you want them to be and you're not quite as successful as you might have first hoped. Then I guess you have to sort of look at yourself and think, well, maybe I should have taken that other suggestion on board, because I didn't take their suggestions on board and nothing came of what I did. But anyway, I don't want to confuse that, but do what's important to you and express yourself. That's the thing for a demo. Don't worry about the actual sonic recording quality, because that can be redone. Record company or anyone who might want to sign you up is looking for the talent. Don't worry, leave all the polishing and all the rest of it, shining things up so that it looks and sounds lovely. Leave that to them or to somebody else if you can. And just worry about doing absolutely the best performance you've ever done in your life, and it's been recorded. Oh, that's me playing at my absolute best. And if you find yourself doing stuff, I'll probably touch on this later, but if you find yourself recording something and it's not the best you've ever done, because I would ask you, if you were recording with me, I would just ask you, I'm quite blunt with things like that, is that the best you've ever sung that? Or was that the best solo you've ever done on that song? Have you done a better one? Well, yeah, I did one last Christmas. It was just great at this club we played at. It was Christmas night, New Year's Eve or whatever, and I was ripping it up, sounded great. Well, in that case, it's not good enough. Go back and do it again. What do you mean? Well, if you've done it better elsewhere on another stage, then why would you want to give somebody something that's substandard? Because technically that's what it is. It's not the very best you've ever done. Don't be giving it to these people. Anyway, so that's the introduction, if you can call it that. My apologies, but I'm going to move on now to reasons why you might want to make a demo. I was trying to think, well, why do people want to make demos? Okay, I'm going to suggest some to you. You may not fall into any of these, that doesn't mean anything, but I would suggest that perhaps this might cover most of you. You're either, number one, you're doing it for personal consumption. You just want to consume it yourself or with your family or people close to you, and for posterity, just as like almost like an audio snapshot, if you like, a bit like taking a photo of you and your music or that song or whatever it is at that time. And there might be a specific reason why, because it might coincide with someone's birthday or anything. It doesn't matter why. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone. Why are you doing that? Because I want to. That's a good answer for anybody. When you're doing your music, because I want to. That's why I'm doing it, and that's why I'm doing it that way, because I want to. That's good enough. So personal consumption, stroke posterity maybe. Number two, another option might be, for a lot of people do this, and I've done this myself, bands, artists, singers, performers, duos, any kind of ensemble, like collection of musicians or performers. They want to get gigs, they want to get functions where they can go and get their talent, or go and do that because they need to try and earn a bit of income as well. And if any of you are musicians out there, performing live is a very, very easy way, to be honest, to go and earn some money, especially if you're playing other people's songs. Oh, I've done it myself. Reach for the stars, sit your hands up in the end, do all that thing. But it does teach you a few things though. I found that quite useful in that you have to go and work out, well, what do these people do? What's their structure of their song? What's the verse, chorus, intro? And then you learn a bit about structure. Oh, that's quite interesting, isn't it? How many bars are there in each of those? And well, they're mostly 8, but if you look at that ABBA song, for example, there's only 7 bars in just the bit before the chorus. Call it a pre-chorus or a refrain. Doesn't matter what you want to call it. It's irrelevant. Names are just irrelevant as far as music is concerned. Call it whatever you like. But the section just before the chorus comes in, the bit that is the selling point of the song, you like, it's only 7 bars long. So the chorus kind of jumps in when you're not expecting it, because you're counting, like waiting for the 8 to come around. Way, here comes the chorus. It's not a bad tactic to consider that. Think about that. So number 1, personal consumption, posterity. Number 2, to get gigs. Number 3, perhaps you're a bit more ambitious than that, and talented enough to look a bit wider afield than that. Think, well, I think I should have a recording contract. So they've got recording contracts, and you know, if they can have a recording contract, then I'm bloody sure I can. Fine. I'm on your side with that one. So it could even be publishing. You might just be a songwriter at home, and you know, you like writing songs and you like singing and you like doing that thing. Well, yeah, I'm no singer, but I like singing though, and I like doing my own songs, and I like singing my own songs because I can express them better than anyone else can, because I wrote them. That's good enough reason as well. So if any of you fall into that category, just as a songwriter kind of thing, and not too bothered about being a performer or an artiste as such, but you'd like to get your songs out there, you need to be approaching publishers to get your songs published. I do have a bit of experience there, so I might be able to help you with that as and when the time sort of ever came around. So personal consumption, posterity. 2, to get gigs. 3, to get a recording stroke publishing contract. And 4, maybe just as a showcase, because you want to show your and other people's that you're working with your abilities. What can you do then? Oh, I can do this, whatever it might be. You want it printed, permanized in some way. Is that the right word? Permanized? Is that a word? But you know what I mean. You want to sort of indelibly print that in some way so that it can be enjoyed by everybody, including people that are close to you, family, that kind of thing. So you've decided you're going to make a demo. Okay? And you're probably going to fall into one of those 4 categories. You might not do, but you probably will. Okay? So first thing you've got to do, what do you do? What's the first thing to do? Well, get ready for it. You mean we don't just turn up? No, don't just turn up on the day and expect everything to work and be all right. At least give it a bit of thought. Have a cup of tea with the boys. I mean, I'm sure if you're in a band, let's say, and you've had a night in the pub where you spent at least an hour maybe having a pint and a chat about what the band name's going to go through the band names, go through the set list or whatever it is that you've done. Well, there's another good opportunity I would suggest. If you've got a demo recording come up, have a little get together and have a chat about things. Just make sure that you're ready. So I'm going to suggest some preparation things that you can consider. Again, there's no rules. Remember that rule number 1, there are no rules. So all I'm saying to you is just my view on this. Take as much notice of what I'm going to say to you as you feel it's worthy of, including no notice at all. Bloke's talking out of his backside. Fine. Please. I won't have any problem with that, because I've told you. I've told you, but I've verbalised that, and please take as much notice as you feel it's worthy of. So your preparation. Number 1, I think you should perhaps think about, well, this is a bit obvious. I know this is really obvious. Or should we record our best songs or our worst songs? Or you're going to do your best. So pick your best song. Usually I would suggest to you, for most purposes, a demo of 3 songs is enough. Start with that. Don't go in and start doing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 songs, especially if it's not something you're familiar with doing, or the people you're working with, you're not familiar with working with them. Just bite off a small chunk, 3 songs. Get that done and hit them as best as you can. So get your very, very best songs. Number 1. Number 2, have a look at and try and pull the structures apart. What I mean by structure is like the arrangement. Intro, verse, chorus, guitar solo or bridge. So after the second chorus, you should maybe be thinking about doing something different there, because the record company will expect your song to go somewhere else there. Okay, we've heard the chorus the second time now. Where are we going to go now? Yeah, I like that song, but it doesn't go anywhere. You've heard that before? That's why. So after the second chorus is usually a very, very, in my experience, having worked on lots of songs and listened to lots of songs, because you don't need to work in a recording studio to understand how to put songs together. Put your favourite music on and put it apart. You think, well, what are they doing there? How many bars are in there? So what have they got there? They got intro, verse, chorus. Well, how many bars are in that? How'd you count a bar? Well, it doesn't really matter as long as you do the same thing every time. What do you mean? Well, just however you're going to count it in the same fashion through each of the sections. It doesn't matter if you're counting 4 bars and there's actually 8. Who cares? You know that there's 4 bars in that bit and 2 bars in that bit, and you've got to, you follow? So don't get too bogged down with all that stuff. But it's usually important to maybe even rehearse the structures. Try some different ones out. Okay, but whatever you're going to do, you should maybe rehearse, but don't overplay the songs because you get bored with them. You turn up on the studio and it'll just have no sparkle to it. Of course, it wants to sound like it's the first time you've ever played it. Do you remember those times? It's a bit like, I'm going to say this, it's the first time you ever make love to a woman or you ever smoke a spliff. It's like, well, I wish I could have that sort of feeling again. A bit like that with the songs sometimes, I think. Oh, the first time I played that song, it was just, whoa, I got that, you know. Maybe not. Okay, select your best songs, rehearse the structures and pull them apart. And perhaps invite other people to do the same, to do that. I'm going to just say one thing about that with the structure. There's a famous phrase, well, I say famous, but there's a phrase a record company will always chuck at you. Because there's some brilliant musicians out there, and there's some brilliant songs out there, and there's some brilliant tapes and recordings of those brilliant performers and songs going around the place. And record companies might end up with putting one in their tape machine, and they might play it. And this song might have the best chorus you've ever heard in your life, but it doesn't start till like 1:45. What do you mean? Well, you put the tape in and then you've got to wait for the chorus, that brilliant bit. It doesn't come in for like 1:45. Well, that means that the guy at the record company, he's got 1:45 to take your tape out and chuck it somewhere else and not listen to the chorus. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Oh. There's a phrase that a record company will chuck at you. Don't bore us, get to the chorus. Okay, so don't be doing that to them. If you've got a good chorus there, give it to them quick. You can even slip choruses in at the beginning and just look at the structures of how these guys go about doing that. They'll put a sort of chorus at the front, at the beginning as an intro, but it won't have everything in it, so you won't know it's the chorus. And when the chorus does come in, it will be different because it'll have all the stuff that's normally in the chorus in it, whereas the first one that happens at the beginning doesn't have all that. But here's the thing, when the first chorus comes in, psychologically, even if it's the first time you've heard it, you've heard that song, you've heard that chorus before, haven't you? Of course you have, because you heard it at the beginning. Okay, it was totally different at the beginning because it had no vocals on it, had none of the other, whatever it might be that you've deliberately not had in that chorus. I've just thrown that one out there. Okay, so select your best songs, rehearse the structures and look into your structures, and then down to equipment. You need to have equipment together. Okay, so you need reasonably fresh guitar strings. Don't be changing your guitar strings on the same day. Bass strings or 6 strings or acoustic strings, whatever they are. Change them the day before, perhaps 1 or 2 days before. Give them a chance to settle down. Of course, that's not a bad thing to do there. I'm so sorry to run that one past you, and I apologise for that because I know that you all know that. But I've been at recording session and guys taking some guitar strings out of a bag and, you know, wrapping them up, and then wondering why for the first half an hour of recording we're struggling like mad because you're out of tune, mate. What do you mean? Well, that brilliant take you just done, we can't use it because it's out of tune. Oh, you're kidding? Well, you tell me, have a listen. Oh shit, it's a bit out of tune. It's a bit out of tune, yeah. Don't be putting yourself in that position, having to turn down a take that you've done which is just brilliant but it's a bit out of tune. Pooh. I don't think I wouldn't be too happy that you were put in that position. If you were in my studio, that wouldn't happen. I wouldn't let it happen. So I don't want you to make that kind of decision. I want you to, you know, finish with your CD in your sort of in your hands and go and just thrust it into people. Say, put this in your CD player, turn it up because this sounds great. That's what I want you to feel when you finished. If I record you. So the other thing about instruments, obviously the obvious one is the guitar strings, a snare drum head. If you are going to do real drums, just put a snare head on. You can do that in the studio, that's fine. You can put a new snare head on the studio and then use it straight away. It makes no difference. It's not going to change over time. As long as it's reasonably tuned, you'll find it all. I've never had a problem with snare heads, but the difference in the sound, you know, and I've actually done this to experiment with a band, and I've sort of said, look, if you've got a new head these, well, I've got one, but okay, well, and I've recorded like 30 seconds of them playing with the old head, and okay, well, change the head and play the same thing, same pattern that you just played, and play it with a new head, and you can hear the difference. So it's a good 10 to 12%, so that's like between a 1/10 and an 1/8 of an improvement. 10%, 12.5%, I would gauge roughly, just by fitting a new head. And what are they, 15 quid? So that's well worth maybe the band called Club Together even to do that. Don't drink so much beer, perhaps. Oh, we can't have as much beer tonight, boys, because we need to put 15 quid in for the snare head and, you know, 15 quid in for some whatever. Okay, so with the guitars though, there are some other things you can do. So get your guitar set up properly, make sure that they're set up properly, that the intonation works, you know, that it's the same tuning on an open string and on the 12th fret. Just check it with the guitar tuning, how close is that? Just get that reasonably set up. because that'll help, and the engineer will appreciate that as well. But like, because for the reason that you don't want to be discarding takes that you've done because of the tuning. Okay, a couple more things to touch on. I'm going to suggest to you, I don't want to offend anybody here, but the most important member of your ensemble, depending on what your ensemble is, but most of the ensembles with bands or whatever have a singer. Most of them, mostly, have a singer. I'm going to suggest to you that your singer is the most important person in that band by streets and miles. I would challenge anyone, particularly who's got any sort of, especially those who've got any sort of experience of working with record companies, perhaps even publishing companies, but certainly record companies. I would invite you to challenge that and argue against that. Your singer is the most important person in the band, so look after him, psychologically and in any other way you think it might be a good idea. And think of your singer as your link to the outside world. Think of them in those terms. Just one other thing, when you're setting up, getting ready to do your recordings, if you find yourself in a recording environment, in a recording studio, and you seem to be spending an awful lot of time setting things up, you know, you're plugging things up and the engineers take a bit of time perhaps to get the sounds working. That does happen, I'm not suggesting, but ask yourself the question, you know, you should maybe look at each other and think, are we in the right place here? You shouldn't be spending time setting up, you should be spending time recording with the red light on, you know, the record light in the machine. That's what you need to do. Can you play that? And I'll, if you're working with me, I would tell you, you know, if I've heard you play something better, I'll tell you. Sorry, I'm not a sycophant. I'm not going to tell you something's good just because you want to hear that. I'll tell you how it is. I'll try and be diplomatic about it. I won't be horrible, you know. But I would say to you, you played that better yesterday. So we're not there yet. And I would always ask you that question: is that the best you've ever played that song, or you've ever sung that song? Well, not really. Well, in that case, it's not done. You need to do it again. Why would you want to play something to a record company that wasn't the very best you've ever done in your life, and you managed to get it recorded somehow? Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more now about doing demos to get gigs, because I'm sure a lot of you would want to do that, to make demos to get gigs for the band for whatever reason. Doesn't matter why, just to go out and have a bit of fun together, have a drink together, earn some money together, whatever reasons, it's not important. I would suggest to you that don't think about this thing about coming back to this 3 song at a time thing. Certainly if you're looking to get gigs, I mean, you've got to try and look at this from the venue's perspective. Now, the guy who runs the club, pub, whatever it is, wherever you're trying to get yourself a gig, they're not in business to listen to tapes or whatever you're going to, CDs all day long. They're in business to run their business. That's what they want to do. So they don't really want to spend more than 5 minutes just checking out, oh, is this band who we record these? And you've given them like 3 or 4, like, let's say you've given them 3 songs, but they're 8, 9, 5, 6 minutes each. So you could be talking like, I don't know, anything from like 12 minutes up to 18 minutes there. So this guy's looking at this CD and he sees 18 minutes. Oh, can't be bothered with that. Oh, I'll listen to that later. I'm too busy now. Oh, yeah, I'll be there in a sec. That kind of thing. These people have a business to run. Bear that in mind. It's really, really, really important. I suggest to you, when you've finished your 3 songs, record them as they are. You know, in terms of the structures that you've agreed that. You know, you've gone into that a bit and think, no, that structure's great. That's the best one we've got. And they might be 3, 4, 5 minutes long. But you can give them a CD with those 3, 4, 5 minute versions on as tracks 2, 3, 4, and 5. But track 1 is a 3-minute mix. I'm sorry. No, that's probably right. Yeah, a 3-minute mix, if you like, of the introduction up to the end of the first chorus, probably enough, or the first minute of each of those 3 songs that are played later on the CD in full, if they want to. But they can put the CD, bung it in the CD machine, and within 3 minutes, they've heard 3 songs. They haven't heard all of them. Of course they haven't heard all of them, but they already know what kind of band is this? What's the setup? What do they sound like? How do they play? What are their songs like? What's the pulse they've got? What instruments do they use? You can get all that from the first 3 minutes. Oh, I like this band. Can you get on the phone and sign them up? Yeah, I've got to go and do this. So he's managed to listen to your tape because it's only 3 minutes, rather than 12 minutes and I ain't got time for that. I've got to go and empty out the stock room. Okay, but because he didn't have to do that, he's listened to your CD and he said, get on the phone to these guys, will you? Book them. I don't care where. Boof, and he can carry on and run his business, but you've got yourself a gig. So that's important. And in my experience, I'm not saying I know everything or anything like that. I'm just suggesting to you that it's well worth you thinking about that. And I would suggest to you that that's not a bad way to go, because in my experience, I've found that people like that. And if you haven't talked to a venue who auditions bands on tape or CD, if you haven't spoke to anyone, you need to be doing that. How do you think about things when you're given a CD? Whatever. Okay, so these guys don't do that. They just want to hear the demo and get it out. And make sure that at least the lead vocals on your demos are absolutely, that you've given enough time for at least for the lead singer, preferably to the whole band. So the whole band can go home and be really proud of, that's me, that is. That's me playing that. Ooh. And you might find yourself playing it over and over again when you get home. I've done it. But who wouldn't want to admit to that? But just make sure that you've got the best lead vocals, because that's your contact with the outside world. So that's the thing about gigs. So you might want to make a demo to get a recording contract. So you're a little bit more experienced. You've got some stuff. You perhaps even out working, doing gigs and all that kind of